Okay, solve the equation for x. So we're solving for the x variable. Now the x is on this side of the equal, so that's where my wall's at. Now there are two things happening to x. A plus 6 and a multiplication by 3. Circle the multiplication, and you got to deal with the outside number first, okay? So between 6 and the circle is a plus sign, so the opposite of plus is minus. So I'm minus 6 and minus 6. So equals 3 times x. And over here we got negative 18 minus 6, that's negative 24. Remember, the number outside the circle is what you take care of first. Okay, it's important you do that dot and circle. So that ends up being negative 24. So I got my wall. And now x is only being multiplied, so I do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide by 3. We can cross those out. When I divide, don't put x underneath there, just put the number. Okay. So now I take negative 24 divided by 3, negative 8. So I line up my equals, and I've got x by itself equals negative 8. So x equals negative 8. Okay, next problem. Negative 3 plus 5x equals 12. Okay, so again, here's my wall. You have two things happening because there's two numbers. You have x multiplied by 5 because there's no sign between the x and the 5, so circle that. And you have a plus negative 3. So the opposite of plus is to minus. So you're going to minus, but when you minus, you need to minus negative 3. Okay, so I put a parentheses with negative 3 and a parentheses with negative 3. So negative 3, when you're subtracting a negative, it goes plus plus. So negative 3 plus 3 then cancels. And over here, that's plus plus. So I line up my equals, and I got 5 times x. And 12 plus 3 ends up being 15. 12 minus negative 3 is actually 15. Okay, so now x is only being multiplied, so now I do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide by 5. Okay, so I divide 15 by 5, and that's 3. So I line up my equals, and I have x, 3. So x equals 3. Okay, next problem. 7x plus 12 equals negative 23. So the x is over here. It has two things happening. With the 7, there's no sign, so that's a times. I circle that. Then outside the circle, between the circle and the 12, there's a plus, okay? So that 12 I need to take care of first. So the opposite of plus 12 would be to minus 12. Okay, so I line up the equals. I have 7 times x. Then I take negative 23. Remember to make 23 a negative, and then minus 12, and that's negative 35. Okay, now only one operation is happening to x, times, so I divide by 7. I divide by 7. So x equals, and then I take negative 35 divided by 7. That's negative 5. Okay, and there's your answer. Okay. X, again, here's a wall, so there's two operations happening to x. We got a division by 6. Now, you want to circle the division and then minus 3. Now, I do the 3 first, okay, because that's outside the circle, so the opposite of minus 3 is plus 3. And 8 plus 3 is 11, so line up your equals. Over here, you have x still divided by 6. 8 plus 3 is 11. So now x is being divided. So what's the opposite of divided? It'd be multiply. So I multiply by 6, because I get rid of the 6's here. And then 11, line up your equals. You have x, and then 11 times 6 is 66. Okay, next problem. 13 equals 8 minus 5x, okay? Now, again, you got two things going on with the x, okay? You got times. Now, again, with that minus in front of the number that's times by x, you want to make it plus negative, okay? Anytime that happens. And then you circle the negative 5 times x. So again, you got two things happening. Now do the number outside the circle. Between the 8 and the circle is a plus, so the opposite of plus is minus. And then minus 8. So I drop down my equals, and 13 minus 8 is 5. Now on the other side, we still got negative 5 times x. So I underline both sides, because the opposite of multiply is to divide, by negative 5. So I can cross those out, and by negative 5. So line up your equals. 5 divided by negative 5 is negative 1, and then I've got x. So x equals negative 1. Okay, 16 minus 3x equals 34. Now, you got two operations. What's happening to x? You got a multiplication by 3. You want to circle that, but if you have a minus in front of that number, you make the minus a plus and the 3 a negative. Okay? That's anytime the multiplying number has a minus in front of it. That's a plus there. So between the 16 and the circle, you got plus. The opposite of plus is minus. So I'm minus 16. 16. So I line up my equals, and we have negative 3 times x. Now on the other side, 34 minus 16 is 18. And then negative 3, now x, what's happening to it? It's just being times, so we divide by negative 3. And I divide 18 by negative 3. So 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. Okay, my next problem. 15 plus x divided by 6 equals negative 21. So here's the wall. So what's happening to my x? There's two things happening. Well, closest to the x is a 6. It's being divided by 6. And then I got a 15. I do the 15 first. So between the 15 and the circle is a plus sign. So the opposite of plus is minus. 15 minus 15, 0. I line up my equals, and I have x divided by 6. And then I take negative 21 minus 15, and that's negative 36. Okay, now the only thing happening to x is divide. Okay, so I times 6 and times 6. I can cancel those, and then I take negative 36 times 6, negative 216. A lot of times when x is being divided, you end up with higher answers for the x, because x had to be divided by 6, and then a number added to get to negative 21. Okay, negative 19 plus x divided by 3 equals 8. So again, there's two things happening to x. You have divided by 3 and plus negative 19. So between the negative 19 and the circle is a plus, so the opposite of plus is minus. So I will minus, but when I minus, I got to make sure I minus negative 19, because that's the number being added. Over here, minus, and then negative 19. So that goes plus, plus, and that cancels. So I line up my equals, and I have x divided by 3. So plus, plus there, and you take 8 plus 19. You can't go plus, plus. If it's two pluses, you can just do 1. Okay, 27. Okay, now what's happening to x? It's being divided by 3. So the opposite of divided by 3 is times 3. Okay, so you got x, and then 27 times 3 is 81. There's my answer. Okay, next problem. 2x plus 3 equals 15. Okay, so two things happening to x. So between the 2 and the x is multiplication. Between the circle and the 3 is plus. Okay, so we got to deal with the 3 first. So we have plus 3, so we're going to minus 3. Between the circle and the 3 is a plus, means I'm going to minus. Okay, so I line up my equals. So I have 2 times x, and 15 minus 3 is 12. Okay. Then x is being multiplied by 2, so I divide by 2. Okay, and now x is all by itself. Nothing's happening to it. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay, what's happening to x? X divided by 2 plus 5 equals 18. So here's the equals, so that's where I line this up at. So two things happening to x. Dividing by 2 and then plus 5. So I do the 5 first, not. Okay, if you do the circle, it'll tell you what you need to do first, the 5, the outside. So plus 5 would be minus 5. Line up your equals, and you have x divided by 2, and then 18 minus 5 is 13. Now x is being divided by 2, so the opposite of divided by 2 is times 2. So 13 times 2 is 26. So x equals 26. Okay, next problem. I want you to do me a favor. You don't do this when you're working on your own, but I want this 9 to be a negative. I'm changing the problem. Okay, I'm changing the problem. This here is about as complicated as she gets today. So the equals is here, so that's where my wall goes. Now there's two operations. You got the 3 times x. Now if you have a minus in front of the 3, you make it plus, and 3 goes negative, and then circle that. Okay. So there's a plus sign in there. So outside, between the -9 and the circle, we got a plus. So the opposite of plus is minus. So I'm going to minus, and then I'll put -9 in parentheses. And then over here, minus, put -9 in parentheses. So plus, 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 plus. So line up your equals. Those can cross out because that's 0. So 5 plus 9 is 24. And then over here we got -3 times x. Okay, so make your wall. And then you divide by -3. Line up your equals. 24 divided by -3 is -8. If you don't know that, you're going to calculate it. And then we got x by itself. So x ends up equal to -8. Okay, next problem. 4 minus 5x equals -16. Okay, so 5 and x have no sign between them, so that's times. But again, when the times number has a minus, you make it plus, negative, and circle the -5 times x. There's a plus outside. So between the 4 and the circle is a plus. The opposite of plus is to minus. So 4 minus 4 is 0. I line up my equals. I have -5 times x. Now that's not 16 minus 4, that's -16 minus 4. So on a number line that would go to the left from the -16, which takes you deeper into the negatives. Underline, and we're going to do -5 because those cancel. Line up your equals. You got x, and then I divide -20 by -5, which is 4. X equals 4. Okay, next problem. Line up your wall. Okay, So two things happening to x. You're being divided by -5, so I can circle that, and adding -9. So the opposite of adding is to subtract. So I subtract, but I got to remember to subtract -9 instead of just 9. Okay, so I minus plus plus, that's 0, and that plus plus here. So I line up my equals. I have x divided by -5, and then -5 plus 9 is 4. Okay, it's not 5 plus 9, it's -5 plus 9. So now x is just being divided, so I'm going to times by -5. So equals, you got x, and 4 times -5 is -20. So x equals -20. Okay, -5x plus 2 equals 12. Line up your wall. So between the x and the 5, -5 is a times, so I circle that. And between the 2 and the circle is a plus sign, so the opposite of plus is -2. Line up your equals, and you got -5 times x, and then 12 minus 2 is 10. Okay, then you got times, so divide by -5. And then 10 divided by -5 is -2. Okay, x divided by -3 equals 12, plus 12 equals 2. Okay, so two things happening to x. It's being divided by -3, and there's a 12 being added. So between the 12 and the circle is a plus, so the opposite of plus is -12. So line up your equals, and you have x divided by -3 here. And then 2 minus 12 is -10. Then I multiply by -3. So we have x equals -10 divided by times -3 is 30. Okay, so 30. Okay, now my last problem. -7 plus 4x equals 21. So there's the wall. There's two things going on with x because I see two numbers. So 4 and x is times, and between the -7 and the circle is a plus sign. Okay, so you're going to minus, but you got a minus -7. When you got to subtract a negative, you just put it in parentheses, and that then goes plus plus. So -7 plus 7 is 0, and plus plus. So line up your equals. You got 4 times x, then 21 plus 7 is 28. Okay, so now what's happening to x? The only thing that's happening is a times 4. So the opposite of times 4 is divide by 4. So 28 divided by 4 is 7. And then that's it. Do the 8 problems and